Hey, welcome to Lab the Podcast. Grateful to be here and honestly, super excited to be with an old friend, longtime friend, Chris Breithaupt. He's a creative maker who spent his formative years in the woods and wilds of the Pacific Northwest, from Washington and Alaska back down to Oregon, and he now resides in a small homestead with his lovely wife, Teresa, and their 6 children. Most days you can find Chris enjoying 3 meals with his family between trips out to the wood shop or workshop, where he's got a wood stove that warms the smell of oak and yew and cypress and cedar. He's passionate as much about the process as the product and will prayerfully contemplate wood grain and the furniture facade as much or more than the actual shaping of tenon and the chopping of mortise. So, Chris, you are an artist, you are a husband, a father, and just a good soul. And it does me good to see you. It's been a long, long time since we've been able to hang out in Oregon. But thank you for making time to be with us today. It's awesome.
It's a deep pleasure. The affection is flowing through the waves, I'm sure.
That's right. Yeah. Every time we get a chance to do one of these with somebody from Oregon, I tell Riley, I wish we could just do it in person and go over there, because there's no way to communicate for people who have not spent time in Oregon how beautiful it really is. And you're literally in one of the most beautiful parts of the world. So for somebody who is maybe in New York or even further east out in across the pond, and they've never been to the West Coast, what's so special about it? I know you have a deep love for the wilds of the Pacific Northwest, but what is it about that place in the world that is probably most special to you?
Well, I love the trees and the water. Unfortunately, the trees get big and beautiful because of the rain, and so that can be challenging. I grew up in a little town where it was almost 200 inches of precipitation a year. I don't even know how many feet that is, but it's a lot of water. And the rivers teemed with fish, and the trees were, some of the biggest in the world. Um, if you asked my wife, it's smaller plants like strawberries and stuff in the garden. They just thrive. It's shocking to be here in Sisters, Oregon, and I go for a walk every day because it's sunny almost every day. And you can count the variety of new wildflowers that have popped up on a new day. And the next day, there's a new 5 varieties. And the next day, where are all these seeds? That's Oregon.
Yeah, yeah. It's when Lewis is describing his conversion and he says it was almost Eden again. That's how I feel outside of Sisters. There's this little stretch in Sisters, Oregon's like Central Oregon. It's high desert. There's some pine trees, and you start to go up into the forest. And we could do an entire episode on forest bathing, but the goodness for your health to be up in that air and up in those woods with those wildflower, and there's deer everywhere. It is almost Eden again. And that's literally right where you are recording this. It's amazing. So, is good. Chris is an artist, and one of the reasons I was so excited to get a chance to spend time, world's best artists telling the world's greatest story. That's become a theme for V3. We're in the midst of this huge visual series. We're doing the symphony projects, and we're just getting to spend time with people who are making beauty that points beyond itself. Beauty itself is this transcendental thing that is pointing beyond itself and telling us that there's something beyond, and that all of this life and beauty is just a trace of something that has a source. And so it's so wonderful to get to spend time with artists. Chris, your artistry took you to Nike and doing really innovative things for Nike, and on the leading edge of technology and using materials and thinking about the cutting edge of design. And you went there and then all the way back to the forest and to a wood stove and to taking things by hand and crafting them. So we're going to follow that whole journey of artistry, but take us back to the first, your earliest memory of making something where you realized, I have a gift and there's something here that I want to follow. Take us back to, at what point in your life did you become aware that you were gifted to make things?
Boy, that's a great question. I I mean, it's like asking a person like myself who grew up in a faithful family who followed the Lord, when did you become a Christian? Well, I was suckled on it. And I think similarly, Zach, my hands were making stuff. Now I know kids make mud pies in the backyard, and I did that too. But my earliest memories, my dad was a logger and we were a bit redneck. I had a pocket knife, I don't know when, and was cutting things. I remember, peeling that outer layer of the wood off of a stick I found, and there was something inside there. It wasn't just the outside, but there was the inside, and I could metaphorically wax. But it's just been that. Um, I remember my grandparents visiting, and my grandfather wanted to invite me in a contest to see who could make the coolest wooden airplane. And so we whittled these airplanes, and of course he won. And then I made the smallest one, and his vision was such that he couldn't see small enough to outdo me. So I beat him there. Um, yeah, I have distinct memories later on, of formative moments, these deciding pivotal points, but they're definitely later through adolescence.
Yeah. Yeah, you it's in your DNA. It's in your I think we'll get into some of the things that you make and the woodcraft and the design, and it clearly is a gift that's been there. God made you for this, and it's really cool. It's an expression of his artistry that you're being who he made you to be. And along the way, that vocation, that calling, that thing that God has made us to be or to become, there's not just vocation but occupation. And if we are blessed, both of those things are aligned, and our vocation and our occupation kind of there's a mix or a commingling of those things or an intersection of those things. When you before Nike, was your aim to be a designer? Were you thinking about textiles and design? Is that how you found your way to Nike? Or like take us on the journey that puts you in this really innovative space, because all of us know Nike. Not everybody's been to Northwest, but you go out there. It's one of the most creative environments that you can be in. Just permission to think outside the box and do really creative things. And a lot of people aspire to work there as a creative because of that. Was that your aim to end up there and work in that industry and be a designer?
No, I think I'm an anomaly. I was definitely an anomaly. I mean, the typical opening has 400 to 600 applicants, and there are PhDs. That's not me. That's not me. But I've been a maker, and and I was a school teacher, and there's this centuries old tension between creatives and makers and engineer minds that are the detail orientation. And because of my teaching background and the making background, the hope was that as I interviewed, I would be able to communicate with both sides. And it worked out. But my creativity, of course, won, and I just pushed that and made, most of my day was spent with my hands in the textiles. So I had never envisioned myself being a maker at Nike. And as a matter of fact, I had to go out and buy a pair of Nike tennis shoes for the interview because I had never owned a pair. I had my leather work shoes on. So that was kind of funny.
It's good.
Actually, yeah, that first interview, one of the guys on the interview panel, it was 7 interviews, by the way. He said, "Hey, we made those shoes in-house. Those are local." He knew. I'm like, how could he possibly know that? But once your fingerprint gets on stuff, you
As a,
recognize it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I just remember conversations where some of the things that you were able to do and the exposure that you had to innovation and textiles and the way people were thinking about things, just it's a very cool environment to be in, but there's also there's costs to that, and there's limits to your creativity, and along the way you then kind of found your way out of Nike back to the woods. Did that feel like a coming home, or was that an adjustment? Was it disruptive for you to be kind of returning back to the craft that you're woodworking, pottery, some of those things? Was that coming home, or was that pushing further into the creative world?
Oh, you've probably heard this thing, Zach, about orientation, disorientation, and reorientation. And that transition away from Nike, I thought I was going to be a career guy, die there, retire. It was disorienting for sure. However, you know, knowing I was going to be chatting with you, I was just thinking about this and life. And you know, the Willamette Valley, it is one of the richest valleys in the world. It's the new Napa, right? And from Eugene to Portland, it's only 70 miles. That's about the same distance from Galilee to Jerusalem
Mm.
that Jesus walked. But anyway, you get on I-5 and you can go quick, 75 miles an hour. The Willamette River made that. Well, God used the Willamette River to make that valley, and it's not 70 miles. It is hundreds and hundreds of miles of meandering between the Coast Range and the Cascades over centuries. But it created this amazing, lush, fertile oasis, Eden. And this is our life, right? This is my life. I want to get there quick. And Nike is the tip of the spear of speed. Laser beams, CNC, a team of gurus who know their craft, and you say go and it's done. But I remember some of those early moments with you, Zach. Long, slow, deep. You remember this?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's the river. And that's the way of life. Waiting, sitting by the fire with my pipe in my mouth, looking at a piece of wood, wondering. I wish I could show you this picture of a pulpit that I made for George Fox, finding the right grain pattern to create this upraised hands with the cross in the center. It's just the front of a lectern, a podium, but it's long and it's slow. And hopefully by the time you're done, it's deep as well.
Mm.
Nike is fast.
Mm.
Done tomorrow.
Yeah.
So to go with your foot to the floor to slow again was very disorienting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now it's nice. 3 meals a day with the kids, right?
Yeah. I think there's something in us longing for long, slow, deep is what is real. Like we are human. And I remember coming across when I was writing my book, a book called the 3 Mile an Hour God, and that our walking speed is 3 miles, and that Jesus's life unfolded at a walking speed. And it takes time to walk. And I think Lewis lamented the invention of the automobile for that reason. He just said we're going to lose a lot, and we gain a lot, yes, but we've lost a lot. And what we've lost are some of the richest things. And I think back on that shelf back there, there's a long, slow, deep carving that I got from the Pacific Northwest. So in a beautiful, beautiful, long, slow, deep community out there, that approach to making is some of what has been really extraordinary for us in making a symphony. It takes a year to write it. Or in some of these visual pieces, we'll commission a visual artist and it'll take an entire year. There's 2 artists right now working on pieces that they won't be unveiled. They're going to give it a year of their life to make these pieces. As you have, like the lectern that you're describing, how has that formed you as a person of faith to make in that long, slow, deep way? How has that actually ended up shaping you as you shape things?
Well, yeah. Boy, how much time do we have?
We'll go
I
long,
I
slow,
just
deep.
thank you, Zach. You put it in, you distilled it to those words. I remember carving a walking stick for somebody and putting those words on it, not with a laser beam. I could have taken it to Nike and lasered it on there. I'd lasered so many things. Um, it was just a little hand carving, but parenting, for instance, um, I look at my life like if you're going to run a marathon, I do the metaphors, sorry. I look at my life and the things that really succeed and are excellent are long, slow, and deep.
Mm,
And yet there are things, for instance, fathering, where I just assume I can just wing this. But same thing, the intentionality, that is required to craft anything. For instance, I don't know who shared this with me. There's a guy with two boys, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. He's got a flat tire pulled off onto the side of the highway there. And he's got them pumping the jack and turning the tire iron. They can't, they need help. But this old timer pulls up behind him in his big pickup truck and he watches for a moment. He says, that'd be way faster if you just changed that tire yourself. And the father, this young man, looks at his boys and he looks at the old timer and he says, I'm not changing a tire. I'm raising sons.
Mm.
And it's slow.
Mm.
Um, but what we give our attention to is not the changing of the tire or the making of a podium. What do we give our attention to? That, Zach, this 10,000 hours. You give 10,000 hours to your craft. I mean, clearly, I look at the space that you're in. You have crafted lab
Mm.
and the beauty and the work that you have put into that. Me, what did I give my attention to? Clay and wood. At the same time, Zach, I see you, across the airwaves there, and you didn't just give your attention to the environment and being an orator and crafting a story. You've given your attention to God, to the Lord. And so every little step along the way, what does Jesus say? I only ever do what I see the Father doing.
Mm.
Wow. I mean, those are the glory moments of my career, my life, is when I'm, there are great makers. There are way better makers than me, but something mystical happens when my hands are on the wood and I turn and I look and I see I'm not alone,
Mm.
you know? So when we give our attention to our craft, the things that we're gifted with and passionate about, we can do those alone. I can do them alone. And I have, the wasted days. But when I, as Jesus said, do what I see the Father doing as my hands are on the clay and the wood, it's a different life. It's a different way.
Mm.
And it's timeless. Like those are the memories that infuse me for the rest of the days of my life.
Mm.
And when I'm lonely or tired or hungry, those are the moments that I reflect on and are like, oh, I'm okay. Because the pre-existent source of all life and all goodness is here with me. And how do I know? Because I remember when my hands were on the wood and I could smell the fragrance of the wood stove, and I can hear the kids on the trampoline outside, that he was there. And so
Yeah.
being able to do that and make money, that's hard.
Maybe you can't serve two masters. I mean, in some ways, there is a conviction there that you can have one or the other. We can make it with lasers, and we can make lots of them fast and get them out, and that will produce volume and scale, and you'll profit from that.
Yeah.
And you can take this other way, and you'll become rich in a different way, and we get to choose which way do we want to be rich. I can be rich in these things, or I can be rich in these things, but it's pretty hard to be rich in both things. And I think Jesus challenged that regularly in saying these two things are very hard to exist together. And even people who have been given the gift to make great wealth, I think they find that there's a long, slow, deep way of being that produces a richness to life that eclipses the material richness. As you describe being able to turn your attention, and even listening to the way that you think about a line. I was reading just on your Instagram the way that you're thinking about, and this is what I love about artists who have a transcendent view, and this is why we say the world's greatest artist telling the world's greatest story. If you can give a maker like Chris the task to build a lectern, then he selects materials and he's thinking about the way the grain of the wood will draw your eyes up, the way that this thing is formed to function in a way, clarity, integrity, harmony, these marks of beauty. He's thinking about making something that will then continue to live in that way. That's why artists can be so helpful when they have that transcendent view and they're not making with a disenchanted lens. But as an artist, there's practices and habits that help you do what the Father is doing and stay close to Him. What are some of the things? And again, everybody's different, everybody's routines and rhythms are different, but there are some common things that do help us stay in communion with God. And sometimes we can pretend that we can skip those things, but there are ways of communing with God, of remaining in Him, that do help us turn our attention and draw from the source. For you, what are some of those most helpful, essential things that help you keep doing what the Father is doing?
Mm. Oh man. I mean, oh, Zach, if you could only see our context as we await building permits. Uh, um, I wake at 3 in the morning, stoke the fire, because we're using wood heat to heat our home. And though that moment, that darkness, that dark hour of I'm alone, it's quiet, and all of my demons come to haunt my mind, the yellow jackets on the meat kind of thing,
Mm,
and to talk myself or work myself back off the ledge is remembering who he is. And I mean, my kids just went to an apologetics conference here in Bend, and I was kind of in my head chiding this. Some churches seem so intent on apologetics. And I wonder, like, would we need apologetics so much if we just looked up?
mm,
Now, it's good to have a concrete argument when it's needed. I'm not poo-pooing that, but um, so yeah, at 3 in the morning, at 6 in the morning, I get up, I stoke the fire, I make coffee, and I sit there with the word, and I read, and I try to pray. But the way my mind works, it's yellow jackets, man. I just thank you, Dr. Claire, Joseph Claire, for analogy, because it's so trying to calm the noise. And then I have only recently, I remember back in school, taking a spiritual formation class, and we did the Myers-Briggs temperament analysis, blah, blah, blah. And then they give you feedback on what would be a good spiritual practice and discipline for you. And mine was journaling, prayer journaling. Now, I'm 52, and this is the first time in my life I've actually followed the advice. But it's magical for me to have to linearly, one word follows the other,
mm,
and the yellow jackets can't get in there. And
mm,
so I've got this book, it's right in front of me, and I can thumb through it, and but to have to put one word after the last, it's slow, but it crystallizes, and then to choose the correct right next word is so helpful
mm,
versus my typical way is I'd go for a walk with the coffee and the dog. That's good too. But for me, like if I don't spend time reading the Bible a little bit in the morning in solitude, nobody around, the kids are asleep, my wife's in bed, and praying, I'm doomed
mm,
to struggle through the day.
mm.
Yeah.
And as you were describing that practice of getting up early, making a fire, I just kept thinking about how often the idea of you don't have room for me, right? There's no room for me in your life,
Mm,
in your moment, in your heart. And would we make room for him? And that's really that practice of opening up time, whether you journal or you look up and you wonder. And I think there's a great nod in your apologetics comment to imagination preceding reason. As Lewis said, like there's two ways of knowing, and imagination is a way of knowing. And if we can start there, then our apologetics are flowing from an enchantment that comes from seeing the grandeur of God, and then we get to unfold it and explore it together. I think that's that beautiful tension. But to create space to make room for God, I think what a great, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I think just write two things down: long, slow, deep. Long, slow, deep. The beautiful things that come out of Chris's life come because he's not rushing. And there's something about just the witness of your life, Chris, that does just remind us, right, in a gentle way, but to maybe slow down. And maybe it can't be done fast. It can't. It not to be done fast. That the richest things come from being long, slow, deep. And I hear you say, make room. And
Yeah.
it's only true if it's true. You got to make room. And if we don't, then we can squeeze out those rich things that God has for us. And the yellow jacks, the intrusive thoughts, the distractions of life, the worries and the cares, those things will take over if we're not thoughtful about that. That's a real, it's a challenge for us in an urban environment because it just seems like there's swarms of them. But I hear you saying even in the forest, our own thoughts, right, are permeated with those things. So it's so
Yeah.
good. Go ahead.
Stay on airplane. The phone must stay on airplane mode.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Do you have a digital practice that I read Against the Machine with Paul Kingsnorth recently with a group of pastors, and he was talking about the practices that he's had to put in place around technology. He's a writer, so he's using technology, he's using a laptop, he's using all these things. But he said, I've also realized that I need limits for myself, or else the boundaries will be crossed. Do you have practices that you've put in place to help you, airplane mode? Are there other practices that you are pretty committed to?
I try to not look at it too much. That's ethereal. There was a chapter where I would not allow myself to look at my Instagram feed without first working on my scripture memory. That was excruciating for a while. Every time I wanted to just check, I had to open up my Bible app and work on the scripture memory. It was helpful to realize, oh my goodness, all this time I spend, and I almost resented having to look at the word. I'm like, what's wrong with me? So that was one. But yeah,
Yeah.
airplane mode, I get on it. I mean, I go into the bedroom, it's off, the phone's on airplane, and then until get up from my quiet time in the morning, it's off. And I'll tell you, the mornings when I know something big's happening, I got an interview, I'm meeting with a client early. If I turn that stupid thing off airplane mode early, Luther would, this one, like he would say, I got so much to do today. I'm going to get up earlier and spend more time with the Lord. And I thought, whatever,
Mm.
dude, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Like even just as a practice, right? Long, slow, deep, make room for God. And don't open the door. If you think about technology being like everything in the world on your front porch, as soon as you crack that door open, it's all coming in. And so again, just be mindful about that. Just be thoughtful about when you open that door. And I think so many people are saying careful about especially those first hours of the day. Don't rush first to open that door and let that flood, that torrent of texts, emails, notifications, all the things. Don't start there. Start somewhere that's upstream, right? Get to the source, and then gently you can come back in. And we'll talk about it in a second. I mean, work of our hands woodcraft is your current, like this is your making place, and we find you on Instagram. So there's a good to that. We can stay connected, we can find each other and communicate. It's just the right ordering of those things. But talk a little bit about work of our hands woodcraft, because one of the things that you're doing is you're making things. Long, slow, deep is the way, and you're using materials that you're selecting, and you're taking clients and their dreams and their ideas, whether it's a lectern or furniture for their home or their actual home, and you're helping clients, their imaginations become realized with really beautiful materials in a really beautiful way. Talk about work of our hands woodcraft and the things that you're making and maybe the projects that are in front of you right now.
Yeah. Well, the name of the company, the business is work of our hands. You know, Moses's prayer in the Psalm. It's dark, and but it is definitely looking up. He is like, dude, God is real. He made it all, and we are his his children, his creatures. And then at the very end, like, please bless the work of our hands.
Mm,
You know, because what else do we have? So that, and then woodcraft, the etymology of word or the phrase, it used to be single word, and it is living in harmony with the woods.
mm,
You know, not raping it and abusing it. I'm a big Wendell Berry fan, and I mean, what do you do to those upstream, downstream that you want those upstream to do unto you? You know, and a million things like that that are just so so critical. If our dust, or I should say, if our bodies become the dust that our kids are plowing up to plant the seeds in, you know, we're going to care for the land differently. And God set up the nation of Israel to do that very thing, like to, yeah, for people who don't have land. Um, there's a stewardship that can happen regardless of our context that we are to care for. Oh, propaganda Alma, you know this recording artist,
oh yeah,
love his music,
oh yeah.
and we're seeing him wearing a T-shirt that it looked like the Patagonia Mountains and it looked like the Patagonia font across the front of it, and you know how that was trendy during the this was some years ago, and I thought, oh, I didn't realize he was a Patagonia guy, and I got to looking closer, and it was Los Angeles. And it was the skyline, and I wept. I was embarrassed. I wept
Mm,
because I wanna be out in the woods and the mountains and the quiet and the solitude, and here's a guy who has a heart for this city,
mm,
these people, and I'm like, "Woe is me. Woe is me," turning my back on the folks who anyway, I'll share one more story, Zach, sorry. I have a friend from Brazil when I worked at Nike. He's a good guy, and I was waxing on and getting frustrated about zoning requirements in the Willamette Valley and how I couldn't develop my land the way I wanted and so on and so forth, and he's laughing, and in his Portuguese accent, he's like, "You know, Chris, I'm just grateful that my kids can go to school and be safe
mm,
without me having to bribe police to keep them safe."
mm,
I'm like, "Oh, oh, yeah,
mm,
yeah,
mm.
little perspective there." Ugh,
Yeah, we're so incredibly fortunate, and but we can't take that for granted. I love how you framed it of, living with a view that says, the I pray that the people upstream would be thinking about the downstream effect of my life. And so I want to live with that same idea that what is down who is downstream of my life. And it doesn't matter if you have land or you are stewarding a company or you are in a classroom or you have your neighbors. We all have this function of dominion where we are stewarding, we are cultivating, we are making. And if we can not change our context, but change our vision and say, wow, God has given me the ability to steward this in a way that there's going to be a downstream effect. What do I want that downstream effect? What should that downstream effect be? And this is the vocation of Israel, right? To be a blessing. That idea, we get to embody that. We get to take that seriously. And I love that about the things that you make. One of them was just this little piece of pottery that I saw that was so beautiful. And I thought, wow, what an invitation. This is what art does. It's just an invitation to see something, to contemplate something, to consider something. And you make pottery, you make woodcraft, you're making in all these different ways. You told a story about painting and just this shift that took place for you where you were working on an explicit piece, visual piece, and thinking about that. And then you passed by a friend's studio that was making pottery. And I thought it was really interesting. If you remember that story, I would love for you to share kind of what took place as you thought about this art versus this art and the way that both were functioning.
yeah, definitely a pivotal point in um, my path. Um, you know that idiom. go into the world and preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. It was all about words. The apologetic was so important, to defend the faith and to overtly proclaim this message. And so the painting I was doing is this massive portrait of David as a boy shepherd, with his hands raised and light, and every detail. It's just so fastidious and time consuming, and nothing wrong with it. I love that. I still have part of that painting in my house today. Um, but I needed to speak this message with my own words, I think was what was occurring. And so yeah, I taking a break, my back was killing me, sitting at the easel by myself, got up, walked out, crossed the quad, and went into the pottery studio. And here, nobody was in there. But sitting on a wheel was a little T-bowl. And there's something beautiful about rock. Like it was about, that tall, just this little tiny vessel, not even glazed or fired yet. But I looked at that thing. It was just a lump of clay sitting there that some humans' hands had expressed the innate godliness, you know. And I knew this person. I knew they were seeking the Lord. And whatever, it doesn't have to be a believer. I mean, just our very breath. I looked at that thing and it spoke to me. And the funny part was it spoke to me the message that I was trying to speak through my painting. And it did it with such clarity that it got the wheels turning, and I wondered, like, wow, is there a different way? The mountains, the rocks, the trees, the stars, the heavens, they're saying things that Romans 1:19, you know, his divine attributes and his eternal qualities have been clearly seen, being understood from what is made. And beautiful beginning for me of letting go a bit and allowing God's voice to speak more clearly through what he's already made. I just get to hold it up.
Mm,
Look at this wood. Look at this. Yeah.
mm. How do you, for people who are listening who want to make with more of an alignment to that, with that transcendent reality, that the world that is made is pointing beyond itself to the maker, and so everything is declaring the glory of God when it's rightly ordered, and being what it was made to be, it is pointing beyond itself. As you take raw materials and then begin to manipulate them, change them, transmute them, form them, and shape them, and you take this and you're going to make that. What do you do to allow that thing to take on a new form, and yet how do you approach those things so that they don't lose that sense of a transcendent nod? These, I think you mentioned it, is the things that you make, you want them to give little glimpses, is the way that you said it. How do you make sure that the work that you're doing offers a little glimpse? Are there some things that are very practical that keep you making things that are pointing beyond themselves? We say this all the time, that beauty is a transcendental thing. It's pointing beyond itself, and so it will lead people upstream if it's doing its job. How do you make things in such a way that they offer a glimpse?
Oh boy, that's tough. It's easy to talk about it in the negative and say, well, I, Walmart furniture versus, custom, but not everybody can afford to hire some woodcrafter to spend 40 hours on a coffee table. And who doesn't want that coffee table? So that's a tough one. But I think Paul says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is praiseworthy. So to start there, like, to give my attention to things that are true, um, and noble. So mission style furniture is, they whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, or do it to the very best of your ability, is the scriptural mandate. And the early beginnings of the Stickley brothers, this was their thing, but it was in a different language, but it was encapsulating this. It was Finnish, I think. What were they? The Stickleys, encapsulating this same idea of to the very best of my ability. Well, that there's always a trade-off. You're gonna buy that with time, so it's a mortise and tenon that has to be precisely measured and fitted exactly and glued and doweled versus a screw or coat it with plastic and you know, the paint does all the work. So those things, I don't mind screws and paint. Those are wonderful things too, and the practicality of and the necessity of certain things. The late James Krenov, one of my heroes, one of the founders of the School of the Redwoods and the contemporary furniture movement in the West. And he said he would have students come to him in November and say, "Hey, I want to make this thing for my grandma for Christmas." He would say, "You won't even find the wood by Christmas." And they're gonna create a design and get all the wood cut and milled and shaped and planed, put together, and all the joinery and everything, and have it wrapped and packaged and delivered by Christmas. And you won't even, I just remember that in his book, The Joy of Cabinet Making. You won't even find the wood. His life, he would have these pieces of wood he would discover in the lumber yard that he had to have. Didn't know what he was going to make out of it. He'd bring it home, buy it with money he didn't have, just on a shoestring, and he would store it and shift it around and move it out of the way and see that piece of wood for years in his cabinet shop. And then one day, the project would happen and the spirit would speak and he would be, "Oh, I remember that piece of wood." And he would excavate through the sawdust and find it and cut it and shape it. And that's you know, it's a circuitous answer to your question, Zach, but being true, what is true? What is noble? What is praiseworthy? And then trying to lean into those and allow it's super frustrating though, Zach, man. If I just need to make this thing. But then you sense the little tug of the spirit being like, you know what? I don't think that needs to be 3 panels. It needs to be 7. It's like, no, no, I gotta go. We gotta humility, submission. Ugh, hard.
Mm. It's so I'm so grateful to get time like this. It's just such a good reminder of the pace at which we're living. And sometimes, you won't even find the wood by Christmas. Think if we applied that, how many times have we been rushing? And life happens, right? This isn't a critique against our lives being full. And I think there's an and, like the quality of our love for people. How many times has somebody's birthday snuck up on us and we're like, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think of them. That happens to me all the time. And I think, man, I love these people. And do I run out and grab something? Or have I thought like, man, I know them and there's something I can write a card by hand, but that's going to take time. And I just have to recalibrate the priorities of my life in
That's the
order.
gospel. I mean, I'm sorry, I gotta interrupt you, dude. Like, this is what happens because I have had my primary love language is gift giving, and I meet somebody like Zach Elliott, whom I fall in love with, and I'm like, oh, I gotta express my gratitude and my affection for this guy, and so I make something. I dedicate time and energy and resource and fastidious. I just am so excited to express my whatever this thing that God has going on, and then I give it, and you open this and you're overwhelmed with what in the world? Why in the world would you take so much? This is ridiculous. Now, amplify that times infinity. I go to prepare a place for you.
Mm,
What did God hold back? He gave everything he could possibly give. There was nothing left to give. Every possible,
mm,
and we open that gift, we peel back the paper and we look and we're just like, what were you thinking?
mm,
I'm not worth this.
mm,
It's not about me. He lavished his love on us in this, that while we were still wretches, he gave everything because he loves us.
mm.
He wants us with him. And man, like that's amen.
Yeah. That's the life and beauty of the gospel. And it's stunning. It's a love story. And no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind can perceive the things that God has for the people that he loves. Like we literally don't have we don't have the capacity to grasp that kind of love, right? And you think about, I've gone to prepare a place for you outside of time, everything, even creation, like the world we literally live in, the wildflowers that are just randomly popping up, they're not random. It's this entire gift. And again, we don't need to change our context or our circumstances. It's a vision thing of just like Jesus has said, the kingdom of God. Like Eden, it's almost as if Eden has come again. And we find ourselves when we do know God, having our eyes opened and we go, oh my goodness, he's God with us right now. And all of this is gift. Man, thank you for carving out some time. I have to say, I'm working on a second book. I'm working on a book right now on art patronage and just the relationship between us and people who make things and the way that we value things and time and people. And it's so fun. I love the process of writing as you described, choosing one word and the word that follows that. It's such a good exercise. And as I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking about just the way that we can, the small things that we can do to return and maybe slow things down and appreciate things. And Josh Nadeau, who we've done a lot of work with, he's so thoughtful about the things he puts in his home. And he's like, I don't need 100 things. Maybe I just need one thing. Maybe I just need one really beautiful cup to drink from, and that will
Mm.
speak more. And I think there's little micro returns that we can make to a world that's made by hand, that the work of our hands has more meaning for us. So if you're listening to this podcast, here's the deliberate invitation I want to extend to you is to find work of our hands, Woodcraft. Become a friend of Chris Breithaupt. You will be, your life will be richer for it in the best ways. And Chris is, as you've heard, it's an honor to get to introduce my friends to my friend, right? And make this introduction. And I just want to set it up that go to Work of Our Hands Woodcraft on Instagram and just become a friend and follow Chris's work as it unfolds. And then as you think about things for your home, for your church, for your world, uh, it may be a project that can't happen because they happen like these paintings for years at a time, but maybe there's something that needs to be brought into the world or you've thought about. Reach out to Chris and just explore those ideas. I think there's a beautiful way that we can begin to think differently. And whether it's supporting artists like Morgan Irons, or go to Spotify and listen to Zine Symphony and support Constantine's work as he's making, go to Work of Our Hands Woodcraft and say, I want a relationship with an artist who has a relationship with God and sees materials like this and time like this, and his ministry is bringing these beautiful things into the world. These are little things that we can do. There's so much we can't do, but some of the things that we can do are just to recalibrate our vision and then embody it in our relational life. So go to Work of Our Hands Woodcraft, follow Chris's work. Chris, you have made for V3 really beautiful wooden bowls that we give to pastors to honor the work that pastors are doing. So we're grateful personally for the work that you have done with your hands to honor pastors and as a friend. And I just am really honored for the time. So thank you for making room today. And for everybody listening, Work of Our Hands Woodcraft, go find Chris, become a friend. And Chris, thank you for just being who you are. It's been a gift, just refreshing for the soul.
I just want to reciprocate, you know, your words, they are, what does Lewis say? And out of the silent planet, what they make of me all the days of my life. And when I lie down for that last time, what they have made in me. So your words, God's word through you, Zach, long, slow, deep, baby. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Here's
been,
to that.
amen.